Hey guys, welcome back to the Third Perspective podcast. I'm Corey, he's Such. This will be episode 40, and as always, the opinions expressed here are our own. Such, how you doing?
Good as always, man. Just ready to have a nice conversation with Gabby here today.
Yeah, absolutely. And so today we have Gabby Goodbrand of Goodbrand Fitness. Gabby, how are you doing?
I'm excellent. Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for or thanks for being on rather than having us on. Well, I guess maybe you're having us on, but we'll see what happens. So, for our listeners, why don't you let them know who you are? Kind of give them the 5 cent tour.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I am Gabby Goodbrand. I am the owner of Goodbrand Fitness, which is a ladies only fitness studio. Um, so, really, my focus in the studio is just bringing women back to fitness most of the time, or helping them start on a fitness journey that they haven't ever done before, maybe. Um, and so really helping them with that. A lot of the beginnings of fitness come from mindset. My background is actually in psychology. I was a school psychologist for about 8 years, and have a couple degrees in psychology. It's actually what I'm most passionate about, and fitness just happened to fall hand in hand with it. During the pandemic, I didn't mean to have a career shift, but there were a lot of things kind of happening at that time. And I had some friends that I've always been interested in fitness and had my own fitness thing kind of going. And I told myself that I wanted to get a group fitness certification for, at the very least, being able to teach at a gym so that I could get a cheaper gym membership and kind of be a bigger part of that community. And since I was working in the school systems, I had evenings and school breaks available to do that. So, but then when the pandemic hit, and everything kind of closed down, I had some friends that said, "Hey, we know you've got this certificate. Can we go meet up in the park and just do some workouts and stuff?" And so I started doing that. And then they started inviting more friends. And then I started inviting more friends. And then one thing led to another, and kind of word got out in the community, and it blew up. It was a really wild experience. And then I got to a point where I came to a crossroads and had to really decide, like, do I want to continue doing this, or do I need to like tone it down a little bit and stick with the school psychology stuff? Um, and this was what I ended up being more passionate about at the time, and continue to be. So this is where I'm at. Yeah, having the fitness studio, coaching women. Again, working. I get to use a lot of my psychology skills and counseling techniques and things like that, just in creating those relationships with all the women who come through my doors or call me or message me or whatever it might be. My goal is really to motivate and inspire other people, and show them that they are capable of a lot more than what they think they are. That's kind of the niche that I work with.
Nice. I like all of that. Lots to delve into there. Now, I also understand too that Canada isn't originally your home. What brought you up here?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Colorado. My husband is Canadian, and when we had graduated university, the job opportunities for him in particular weren't great in the States. And it was, during the recession and all of that. And um, he kind of had a foot in the door here in Canada. And he was Canadian anyway. So we came up here, thought that we'd give it a year or two to kind of establish ourselves in our career and gain some seniority. And here we are almost 11 years later. And I don't foresee us going back to the States at all.
Well, we're glad to have you. You mentioned as well that your fitness business is for women. Was there an idea behind that? Was there an intention behind that?
Um, no, and it didn't even, I would say it didn't even start out as being just for women. I thought that like maybe people could bring their partners, but ultimately it was who I related with. So when it first started, it was moms that I had met through my kids' daycare who were, asking to go meet outside and do things like that. And so just naturally that meant that their partners were home with the kids while they were getting out in the evening for a workout or whatever it was. Um, and so we were doing evening classes, and so that's kind of just what it was. Um, and then I think I had a male come to like two of my classes, and he was pretty much the only one. And that was kind of when I realized that, like, nope, this works out as being just for women. And I realized more and more that women really like a space that's just for them, especially in fitness, because there can be a lot of intimidation in the gym, just a lot of self-consciousness, not feeling like you're knowing what you're doing, feeling like people are looking at you and judging you, and I'm not lifting enough, or am I lifting this right, or am I using this machine correctly, and all of these things which can prevent women from going to the gym. And so I wanted, once I kind of noticed that, and like got the feedback that they really appreciated having a space that was just for them, it meant a lot to me to like make it that safe space. And what's also been really cool about that is I've had a lot of Muslim women come in and be able to like take off their scarves and like be comfortable in this space with only women. And so like to see that impact and see like it goes beyond what I had ever envisioned, has been really, really cool.
Awesome. I know you're obviously quite into fitness, more so than I am. Have you found when you're at the gym that you can sense that sort of trepidation from some of the women that are there? And if you are sensing it, what are you doing, if anything, to sort of help that when you're there?
Yeah, I think the demographic I think that Gabby's servicing absolutely might have some of those issues because if they're new to fitness and they're coming back into the fitness space, it is intimidating, and even for men, right? Like if a man coming into a fitness facility for the first time or after many years, they feel the same thing. So I do sense it, and I think it's an awesome thing that Gabby's created an environment for women to feel safe and to get healthy. And not only that, but creating a community around it so that they, not only from a fitness perspective, but from a community perspective, it's almost like a holistic sort of approach to mental health, right? Where you're uh, addressing the fitness aspect and the community aspect and camaraderie and fellowship and all these types of things, right? So for sure, I do sense it. Now, what do I do about it? I refer people to Gabby is what I do, and to other facilities because I mean, for me, I'm not in the space of trying to tell people what to do and how to do it and uh, doing things like that. And if people are intimidated in the gym, having someone like me come up to them is probably not the best thing sometimes, depending on the scenario. So I don't want to further cause any issues to people if they're in a facility. Now, if someone is coming up to me and asking me questions, absolutely, I'll engage them in a friendly manner. But I don't want to, make people feel any more uncomfortable than they might feel already.
Yeah, and as somebody who's had his dances with fitness as things have gone on, and either in the public side or the private side, I know that even as Satch was saying, as a man going into some of these places, it can be extraordinarily intimidating. Just because I don't know what to do. You think a gym is fine, but like, what's the etiquette here? How do I work in on a machine? Is it okay that I'm doing much less weight than the guy who seems impatient standing next to me? Those sort of things, and those can be barriers that just stop you from going. Period. And that's the complete wrong side of things. So from a man's standpoint, simply because of my gender doesn't mean that when I go in, I have an immediate pass. So, and obviously, walking up to somebody like Such, I don't know if I'd be comfortable asking him, hey, can you watch my technique, or can you do this, or can you spot me? Just because it's asking for help. So that goes to my next question, Gabby. Do you find that the women that are coming to you, are they asking for your help, or are they asking you to fix something, or is it something else?
Yes. A lot of times, yes, they are asking for help. Um, they usually come with seeking two things. One, weight loss. women are always on this seeking weight loss train. I've literally never met a woman that didn't want to lose at least a couple pounds. And then a lot of them are also seeking that community that Sach mentions. They are seeking a place where they feel welcome, where they can meet others, others who are at their same level, and those sorts of things. And I think as women and as moms, it can be especially in early motherhood, a really hard time to meet people. And I know that for me, it was like my friendship bases changed when I had kids, because the people who didn't have kids didn't know how to spend time with us because we had kids. And I met somebody who ended up having 4 kids, and she felt like even her friends with only 2 kids felt that same way too. And so the gym was a really nice place to not have that battle of how do I spend time with you, and instead being in this environment where we're all in the same boat, we're all working towards the same goals, we're all here for the same reason. You walk in the door and you have a common denominator, and that was a huge thing. And I worked really hard to foster that, and to model how I want my members to treat new people coming into the gym. And so it's so nice now that somebody new will come in and I don't even have to be the first person to introduce myself. Somebody around will be like, hey, I haven't seen you here before. Is this your first class? And so that community just immediately makes people feel welcome. And that's really what I value in that space.
Mm. I'm myself and Sach are both fathers of daughters, and I found that obviously I grew up with a brother, so I didn't really have any concept of women or girls other than failings at school that I tried to talk to them and all the rest of it. But the funny thing that I've seen is that there has been a change in the way that I'm talking to my daughters, basically prompted through my wife, which was the fact that this idea of pretty and nice and kind has sort of given way to being healthy and strong when it comes, because that's generally what I try to impress on my daughters. I want you to be healthy. I want you to be strong in whatever form that is and in whatever shape that is. Are you finding that is coming through your doors more now, or is it still, as you said, a little bit of an older mindset?
It's a combination of both. So a lot of times people will come in initially saying, I just want to lead a healthier lifestyle. I want to be healthier. I want to be fit. And then I dig a little deeper and they're like, well, but I wouldn't mind losing a few pounds. I've gained all this weight during whatever time period. But one thing that we do at the studio that's a little bit different than a lot of other places is kids are welcome to come with their moms into the studio. It's a big open space. So if the kids prefer to sit in the back on a device or coloring or doing whatever they're doing, they can. But some of the little kids want to be closer to their mom and want to be right next to mom. And so the kids will set up a mat next to their mom. And I've got little tiny 1 and 2 pound dumbbells, and they'll grab their own weights and they'll kind of join in on the exercise with us. And so now there's a lot more talk in that space too about like being a good role model for your kids, and again demonstrating that like it's okay to take care of yourself as a mom, and that sometimes like the kids, I always try to tell them like you spend all this time like scheduling soccer practices and activities and all these things to like keep your kids healthy and active, but like what are you doing to show them that you keep yourself healthy and active? And so bringing them into that space, it's like a lot of these kids come in knowing that that's just part of the routine now, that mom goes to work out and then we go do blah, blah, blah for the rest of the day. And so, yeah, it's really cool to set that example for the kids as well that come in with their moms, and especially for some of the little girls that come in and show like, and really talking about like, wow, look how strong you are, rather than, again, look how cute you are and how tiny you are and like all these little things. It's like, whoa, look at all these things you can do in here. So that's, yeah, super cool.
Yeah. Sach, I know obviously I don't want to talk for you. I've assumed through our talks that you do very similar things with your daughter as well. But I'd be curious sort of how you encourage your daughter as well for our listeners.
Yeah, I think what Gabby's talking about in terms of the kids also being there and observing their parent or other women doing things for themselves is so freaking legit. I think it's so awesome, man, because now that I have, my daughter's going on 7, and for me, what I recognize is when I take her to jiu-jitsu, and she does jiu-jitsu. She's going to start softball pretty soon here, and she plays soccer. Now, what I've noticed for me is when I go to take her to jiu-jitsu, I put my gi on and I'm coaching the class as well. And her engagement is so much more than it would have been if I was sitting on the side. And what I recognize is that she actually enjoys it and she wants to go because I'm there present with her. So it becomes a thing that I can do with her, and it becomes more enjoyable. And with soccer and softball, 'cause I'm not the only person. Also, my ex-wife, she's very fit and active, and she advocates for these things as well. So, as I understand it, and I know Gabby has way more knowledge on this space than I do, but the modeling is so important, right? Like, so, the same sex parent is super important in terms of what they're modeling, how they're modeling it, to encourage that behavior over a period of time. And the second most important parent is the opposite sex um, modeling. So if we're both modeling behaviors that we would like to see in her, and we're doing them ourselves, now we're demonstrating the behaviors that we want to see rather than telling them what to do and us not doing them ourselves. So obviously, it is much more impactful than not. So I totally agree with what she's doing, and clearly she knows what she's doing. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's important too, as well, to show your kids that it's okay for parents to invest time in themselves. So, again, the big thing that I keep trying to tell my wife is I know you're trying to do everything for our girls, but you need to take time for yourself and you need to set that boundary where it's okay that you're not doing something for them right now, even if they want you to. Um, and I think that's important because it shows that you value your own time as well and that it's important. But I really like that idea of sort of teaming up, that idea of bringing your kids there and really showing them what it's like for you to do it. And also, like, as such as saying, that engagement that they have with you, it's so valuable. It's almost like we call it a force multiplier. It's so much more beneficial. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, sort of thing. So, but Gabby, I do have an interesting question for you. Do you find that you are spending more of your time with your clients as a trainer, or do you think that you're falling a little bit on the psychologist side of things, or like what's the split? I'd be curious.
Oh, that's a really great question. It really depends on the client and what they need from me. Um, on more than one occasion, I have had women walk through the doors, and just in my introduction with them, they start tearing up because they've strayed so far from who they were or who they wanted to be or whatever. And again, strayed so far from like their health and just not taking care of themselves that they become ashamed of who they are and all of these things. And so then they start, um, they're upset about that, and they are now walking into my space, taking ownership of that and saying like, this, I'm ready to do this now, but it doesn't come without emotions. And so those clients I end up, building an immediate bond with. And they typically require, um, and seek out a lot more of that relationship and psychology side of things, and again the motivational side, and just staying connected. And then I get other people who are a little bit more self-motivated in the sense that they can come on a regular basis without me checking in on them, and I know that they're doing well. I do work very hard to have at least some personal connection with every single person who comes through the door. It's becoming increasingly more difficult as we have a lot more class times that are offered, and a whole bunch of different instructors doing different classes. But I make sure that I schedule myself, in the early mornings so that I can see those people, the later mornings so that I can see those people, and the evenings so that I can see some of them as well. And so, having that personal connection and them knowing that I know when they don't show up or when they haven't been in a while, that alone plays to the psychology piece huge. And so even if they are a little bit more independent in their fitness journey, I think when they know that I, again, know if they haven't been coming for a while, and checking in with them like that, that's another aspect that you're not going to get at many other gyms. That's really important to me.
I
Yeah.
just want to jump in real quick and maybe ask a couple questions here if you don't mind. Um, so one thing. So when did you actually start Good Brand Fitness?
In 2020, so the
Okay.
actual height of the pandemic, and it was like in May. So again, people were just ready to get outdoors and be around other people again because it was kind of March through May where everyone was like, stay inside, don't see anybody, don't look at anybody, don't talk to anybody, um, you know, isolate all of these things. And so by May, when things had eased up enough that I was like, "Oh, well, we can kind of be outside as long as we keep our distance." Um, that's when, and that obviously, like, psychologically, people were really looking for psychological stuff too at that point. Like, it was a big psychology game, and I think that that's, where the psychology piece came in and has just continued because to this day, I have people who say to me like, you know, "I was doing blah, blah, blah before the pandemic, and then I gained all this weight during the pandemic, and now I'm here because I wanna get" all of that, and so they're still using that, and that's still played hard on their mental health.
Yeah. So another question. So what was when you first started in May of 2020, how many people were there at that time?
4, 5, maybe?
Okay. And now, how many clients do you have walking through your door?
Oh, geez. At this point, we have over 100, like, regular monthly members. And then I have a whole bunch that just do also like 10 class passes. So they're coming in like maybe once a week or, when they can, like a lot of shift workers or things like that whose
Mm.
schedules can be kind of all over the place. And so I see them every so often, but there's probably 100 of those people as well.
Yeah, so I mean, I wanted to highlight that. I already kind of knew that was kind of what was going on, but you went from four people to essentially 200, right, in a span of 4 years, and servicing people from that capacity. And man, and you probably have like four, five, six different coaches throughout the day and multiple classes. I mean, it's a full running sort of facility going from four people all the way to what you've done, which is pretty amazing. And kudos to you for doing that. I had another question though. So as a psychologist and managing the fitness and psychology part of things, that must be a lot on you as well, right? And it probably takes a lot out of you in terms of the psychology perspective, like just taking in a lot of that energy. How do you manage that?
Um, there, I'm lucky in that I hear heavy situations some of the time, but I'm still not dealing with some of the heaviest stuff that's out there. Um, again, like, there's child psychologists who hear all about abuse and things like that, and I don't always get that side of people's stories. A lot of it is like the immediate stress that they're experiencing and things like that, and you know I actually, find it pretty cathartic, because I have a lot of the same similar stresses that these people do, with family life and, maintaining a business. There's other business owners that come in, um, and so it can actually be kind of cathartic because a lot of the time when I am speaking to them and encouraging them and inspiring and motivating them, it's words that I should be saying to myself as well anyway. And so when I say them out loud and I'm hearing them back, I'm like, "Oh, okay." And not only that, but like in this environment that I've fostered, like these women, they're not counseling clients. It's an actual two-way friendship,
Mm,
where like in a counseling relationship, one person is unloading on the other, and the other one, the counselor is just kind of feeding it back, but the client doesn't know much about the counselor. Whereas in this environment, especially because I'm such an open book, I'll tell people in class that I'm having a hard day, that XYZ is going on with my family. One, because I want to be transparent and let them know that they're not alone. And two, because it's better than me trying to hold all that in as well. And so I have found that over time, they are equally as supportive of me and helping me out. And I've gone through a couple hard times where my members are like bringing me dinners because, something catastrophic is happening in my life. I've had a member just drop by my house with flowers because I was having a really hard day and I mentioned it and things like that. And so it's really nice to have that back as well.
Yeah, it makes total sense.
Now, I did want to ask, because that was quite some fantastic questions and answers there. But I did want to ask, with everybody that's coming in, is there? I know you're trying to. What's the best way of putting it? Customize sort of classes as best you can to each person, obviously with your background. But is there a very general set formula that you use for people that are coming in? That's very basic, but they're common steps to get somebody up to where they're successful in a class and they're regularly attending, because obviously they're all coming from different backgrounds. So is there some way that you do that, or steps that you do that our listeners might be able to think if they're sitting on the couch right now wondering if they're going to start this?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the very first things that I do, depending on how somebody finds me, I try to have a phone conversation with people. So, like I have ads out there and whatever, and people can, fill out their interest, and then they're encouraged to book a call with me, or they get text messages back and forth. And so, because I find that building that rapport from the beginning makes them feel safe when they come in for the first time. If I don't have that available, I try to make it very apparent in my social media platforms and on the website that when you come in for that class, that the classes are suitable for all fitness levels. In the pictures that I highlight, I show women of all ages and shapes and sizes and backgrounds, and the kids being at the classes and things like that, just to visually show them that, like, hey, this is a place where you can belong as well.
And your
And
gym
then
dog too.
yeah, my pup as well, who just luckily for me just sits on the side so that he's not bugging anybody. But yeah, I mean, I really try to make it as inviting as possible, and again, offering all sorts of modifications. I let people know that, yes, the class that you're coming to is called boot camp. And a lot of times that comes with a certain connotation. But in reality, the boot camp that I'm going to offer you, I will offer you all sorts of options to the entire class, not just to you. I'm not going to single you out saying like, oh, if you can't jump because your back is sore, your knees hurt, you've got a weak pelvic floor, like whatever it might be, I'm throwing out these options to everybody. And you'll see in that room, when we're doing push-ups, there are people doing push-ups probably 10 different ways around the room. They're against a wall, they're on the bench, they're on the ground, they're on their knees, they're doing whatever it is to make it work for them. So there's absolutely no judgment at that point, because people are taking these modifications, not just like, oh, am I going to be the only one doing this? They're not. And so, I try to, again, build that rapport and express that to them as best as I can. And then hopefully that, comes out when they are in the class and able to see what that actually looks like.
Now, for somebody who's not showing up at your particular studio or and taking your classes, do you have any tips or tricks for them in order to be able to advocate for where they're going in order to try to get something very similar to that?
I think they need to really consider what their needs are and not just sign up for something because it's the cheap gym. Again, these big Steve Nash type gyms, Club 16s, yeah, they're cheap, but they're cheap because you pretty much have to know what you're doing walking into those doors. Unless you're paying additional money for a personal trainer, there's not going to be somebody there telling you what to do and how to do it and make sure that your form is correct. So they need to find something that's going to meet their needs, again. And that's one thing that I have from the very beginning of this is I have recognized what I offer and who that appeals to, and recognize that it's not right for everybody, and that's okay. Like, what I do, I might not be right for you, and that is perfectly fine. If that's the case, I will recommend, I can help you figure out what you need. So figuring out, again, like, you've got, a previous back injury that's going to really limit what you can do in your movement. You probably need a personal trainer. Here are some that I can recommend based on what your needs are. And I have a network of people. I've worked really hard to also network with the people who do exactly what I do as well, so that I can share that information with others. And again, because I'm a place where people are kind of starting their fitness journey, I've had people who test out, if you will, of what I do, because they now need something that's a little bit more intense, or they need, to be lifting heavier weights than what we really use at the studio. And so guess what? I've got a network of places that I can refer you to for that as well. So I really think it's just about, recognizing your own needs, not being ashamed of those needs, and advocating for yourself and saying, no, that's not going to work for me. Or, this is what I need you to help me with. These are my limitations. But also in recognizing your limitations, not being afraid to push yourself a little bit, because I find that people can get kind of complacent. And they get comfortable and they're like, okay, I had a good workout, but they just keep lifting the same kind of weights. But it's like, no, I'm also going to try to push you a little bit and see what you can do that maybe you think you can't. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I want to jump in on that part there if you don't mind. So how do you do that? Like, how do you determine if someone is perhaps not reaching for their full potential, and they can, like, they have more to give, you think, based on your experiences? How do you find ways to get them to understand that or encourage them to do something they've never done before?
Oh, that's a good one. So first and foremost, one thing that I've always done is I actually, when people walk in the doors, if they ask me for a recommendation of like, what kind of weights should I be grabbing, I'll give them a recommendation, and I'll give them kind of a range and let them choose where they're going to be. But I will not tell them how much to lift. I will not tell them how fast that they should be going. I won't tell them to, go faster. And when I say boot camp, that's not the kind of boot camp I am. I'm not shouting in your face. But as they start coming more often and I see them picking up the same weights over and over, or I see them pushing their weights really quickly, and I'm like, hey, I visually can see that, like, you can go heavier than that. And that's what I'll say to them. I was like, come on, grab some weights, or I'll just grab the weights and go set them down right next to that person. Um, and it's really interesting because, thank goodness for the psychology side and building up the rapport from the beginning. I know which people I can push in which ways. And some people it's using humor, and some people it's using encouragement, and some people it's talking to them about it after class, or totally separately, privately. Some people I'll highlight them in class, like, oh gosh, did you just see how much she did, and like give them that kind of recognition in class. And so knowing those things about them allows me to again push them in different ways.
Yeah, I
I think,
think sorry, I just wanted to jump in
yeah.
real quick if you don't mind. I think that's the benefit of boutique facilities, right? Like, if you go
Mhm.
to a Club 16 or a Steve Nash, and they're good, they're fine, I go to them, right? But I think the benefit of having a facility such as yours is you get to know somebody over a period of time and understand what their reasons are, and maybe perhaps mold them into a certain direction that they may not understand yet. So I think that's the, you know, that's worth the cost of admission, right? Let's say if you're
Absolutely.
charging 150 or 200, whatever the amount is, right? Versus a Club 16, which is $20 a month. You're getting so much more out of that. You're getting someone who's observing you, someone who's understanding you, someone who um, will dig into what you want to perhaps do over a period of 2 or 3 years while you're in that facility, and then encouraging you through that process. So there's huge benefits, I think, to going to specific boutique environments like that. Like I go to jiu-jitsu, right? That's 150
Correct.
bucks, 150, $200 a month. I'm going there for community. I'm going there to learn things and be coached by other people who have the experiences, and then they see something that I might not see and encourage me to get to that next level. So yeah, I just wanted to add that piece to it. The difference between like a big box gym and what you're doing is, in my opinion, probably better.
And I just wanted to add too, as well, is that while Gabby's sitting there and figuring out how to motivate people, I want our listeners to remember too, you may not know how you yourself are best motivated. You may think that you know how you're motivated best, but it actually may be wrong. And that might be one of the reasons why you stopped doing what you were doing before, because you thought, I'm not getting the motivation I want, or the motivation that I'm getting doesn't feel good. So keep in mind that your motivation and how you're motivated can change over time, depending on what's happening in your life, depending on what's going on. And I think that's to tie into what Such is saying. When you get that sort of custom approach, you will find that somebody will find that for you and push that button for you. And it may be uncomfortable at first because you may not want it or you may not like it, but you'll find that eventually it starts working for you, and then it pays dividends, and then there's that force multiplier. So, but that leads me into our topic for this episode, which is mental health and mindset, because we often don't think about that when we're talking about fitness, when we're talking about getting out and moving. We're not thinking about up here, we're thinking about here. So, Gabby, I wanted to ask you, what's your definition of mindset, and why is it so important?
Mindset. I think it is the kind of the definition for me, I guess, is like the beliefs that you're telling yourself, and it is the your attitude towards yourself, towards life, towards what activities there are, and things like that. And what I've really learned in my mental health journey and my mindset journey is that mindset is very intentional. It is choosing to think a certain way, and that when you choose to think that way, your actions then start to coincide with that. And if you've read the Atomic Habits book, he talks about how instead of you're telling yourself like I'm not a runner, I'm not a runner, you start saying I'm a runner, and you get out and you run even just a little bit, and then you say I'm a runner, and then you go out and run a little bit more and you say I'm a runner, and you start building that behavior or that character, if you will, of who you are. Um, and so we talk a lot about that mindset, and that I can and I am um, belief, especially when it comes to fitness, since a lot of these women again are coming in and not feeling very confident with who they are in that space.
Such, I know you've got a good definition of mindset. Why don't you talk a bit about that?
I don't know if I have a definition, but
Well, you've got a lot of examples. Let's put it that way.
uh,
Yeah.
mindset's everything, in my opinion,
Yeah.
for anything that you're trying to do. And I think there's only one type of mindset that one should have, and that's a growth mindset. And everything else, in my opinion, is not beneficial in terms of trying to achieve anything in life, right? So 3 years ago, I law enforcement, but as soon as I made a decision as to, attempting to break the record to run across Canada, that day I said I'm a professional athlete, even still being employed as a first responder. So I shifted my mind into, okay, what is it? Because this is what I thought. I'm a professional, want to go to work. My uniforms on properly, my shoe boots are polished, all these things, right? I perform my job in a professional manner, all these types of things. So I thought, well, if I can do that like a professional, I can do anything like a professional. And so I just thought, okay, I'm a professional athlete now. And then I started thinking of how a professional athlete would function, what they do, how they do it, where they go. And look, I wasn't a professional athlete, but I put the mindset on. And what it allowed me to do over a period of time is start going down the road and experiencing things and the nuanced things as it relates to being a professional athlete, hitting markers and doing all the things that I needed to do to kind of get there. And now, after about 3 years, I feel I've stepped into that role as a professional athlete. So for me, it's mindset's everything, and growth mindset. Now, what is a growth mindset? Growth mindset is taking something that might be challenging, but look at it in a perspective of growth and how we can enter that space to learn from the things that we're doing,
Mhm.
rather than having a perspective of like, oh, that's a difficult thing. I don't know how to do that, and kind of step away. But going into it thinking there's an opportunity to learn and get better. So, like the James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, is 1% better every single day. So that's with anything. It doesn't even have to be with fitness. I I posted up this
Mm.
morning about my Sean Taylor sent me a coffee. It's a very fancy boy coffee. It's Colombia, and it's a Colombian coffee, Frank Torres, and it's a has fruitier notes, and it's probably a fairly expensive coffee. Probably like $30 for 250 grams or whatever it is. But for me, I've over a span of a year, I've been doing 1% better just with my coffee and applying a growth mindset to my coffee and understanding coffee better. So I want to be able to drink better coffee and understand where it comes from. And now, what does that do for an individual when it comes to mindset? It allows you to experience life better, right? So if you're experiencing your life, then you're enjoying life better. And if you're enjoying life better, that means your mindset's more improved in your mental health. So I think it's all kind of intertwined, and that's my definition.
Mm, I like it. I don't have coffee with a first name, but I could probably step up my game on that. Gabby, thoughts on a growth mindset and what such said?
I agree completely. Yeah, it's when I think mindset, the growth to me, the growth mindset, where I'm at least, it's one and the same. Again, it's this idea of doing better, again, being very intentional about it. The growth mindset applies again to everything. It applies to like, okay, well, what am I going to do tomorrow that's going to make it better than today? And sometimes that means, scheduling in your workout rather than just like, I'll do it when I have time. Sometimes it means, okay, I'm going to add more veggies to my meals. Sometimes it means I'm going to spend this dedicated time with my kid, with no phone with me, or, it does apply to everything. Again, as Sach said, even as something as simple as the coffee, and I want to get to know this better. And it, the growth mindset is that the key word of a growth mindset is yet. I don't know that yet. I can't do that yet. Like, you know, all of those things. And when you say yet, that implies the desire to want to do better and the desire to, grow.
Yeah, it's a relentless pursuit of excellence. Now that that phrase sounds daunting, right? If you're saying excellence and you're relentless and we're pursuing it. But if you just take a step back and say, I say this to myself quite often, I'm trying to relentlessly pursue excellence and with everything that I do. And I want to be a better dad every day. So what do I have to do today? And so you just intentionally, like Gabby's saying, intentionally thinking about what are the things that I want to improve upon, and just do little bits of that every single day for the rest of your life. And it sounds daunting, but it's actually not that hard. And it allows you to stay in a more positive headspace. And I know for me, I need to stay in a positive headspace because sometimes it dips quite a bit. And for me to constantly think with a growth mindset, it's almost like you have dopamine hits almost every single day because you're engaging a process that allows you to see forward momentum, and forward momentum leads to growth.
Yeah, and adding that yet in there just to touch base on what you're doing changes it from impossible to probable. Now, does it mean that you're going to do it? Does it mean you're going to be at the best level that you think you can be? No, but it doesn't remove it immediately from your toolbox. Um, the other thing that I was very curious about from the psychological side of things is mental health and mindset. Are they synonymous? Can you have a mindset but not a great mental health, or can you have great mental health but not a mindset? Gabby.
Um, okay, so when you say, can you have great mental health and not have a mindset? I would say yes. There are
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people who can kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of easily float through life, and they're pretty, relaxed about things, and they can let things slide pretty easily, and whatnot. And those types of people, don't necessarily have to focus that intentionally on their mindset, because they're moving right along, they're feeling good. I think mindset really becomes apparent to people when they're struggling, and it really becomes a way to move out of um, some darker places. And so, can you have good mental health without mindset? Yes. Can you have, I think if you have not great mental health, your mindset is probably not good either. And so, for me, um, one of the biggest changes in my mental health journey, was actually when I moved to Canada. My first year here was really, really tough, because I'd lived and grown up in the same place for forever. And so moving away from that, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know, I had to use my map every time I went to the grocery store. Like, you don't think about some of these things. And it was really, really hard on me. And I ended up going to a therapist, and one of the things that she did as far as working on mindset was she had me doing a gratitude journal, and really trying to focus on even the little things that I could appreciate in a day. Whether that was like, hey, the sun is shining here in BC, because we know that through winter it can be really, you have to like acknowledge those days, or hey, I got to actually drink a warm cup of coffee. I didn't have to set it down and forget about it today. Um, the trees are blooming, whatever it was, really helped me. That was a mindset thing. And it stands out so much in my journey because it was such a simple act, that can be used at any time. Anytime I start feeling low, I can revert back to that and say, okay, well, what's going right in my day? What kinds of things can I appreciate about where I am, and what's going on? Um, so that, yeah, that was a big change in my mental health. And I think without that mindset, and now again, like, now it's turning into that growth stuff of like, okay, well, now that I'm recognizing those things, like, what do I need to do to be better, and what can I do to take care of that? Yeah, it's changed it.
With somebody like any of our listeners that are sitting there and they're unfamiliar with mindset. Maybe they've been doing things like that, but they haven't put a word to it, or they haven't put a definition to it. What, in both of your opinions, can somebody who's completely a beginner at this and doesn't know what to do but wants to be better, how can they start establishing their own mindset and feed it back through and stress test it to make sure it's working? Such, I'll start with you here.
I mean, it's hard for people to start off with a growth mindset or a positive one sometimes if they don't have certain things in order first, right? So you require consistency over a period of time. You require discipline each and every day, and many other things, right? Intention, various other things that are required Now, if you're in a mental state where these things are super challenging, you got to get those things squared away first, right? And if that means you're seeking treatment, seeing a psychologist, therapist, whatever the things are, a friend, a mentor, whatever, right? And once you get those things squared away, then it's kind of simple in the sense that, um, hi, how you doing? No. Um, so then it goes, then the next steps, I think the person has to understand why they want to engage in a certain process. So for example, if you're know that there's certain issues, you have to create a purpose or a why, a reason as to why you want to engage a process. And once you identify that thing, then it becomes super easy to have discipline, have consistency, have the resilience, have the intention, all the things associated to it. So for example, what do I mean by that? Purpose. And I'll just say mine because I know it. So my purpose is to maximize my skill sets for everyone around me so that I can effect permanent positive change. So that kind of guide me through everything that I do. Now, once I identified that, it provides a great deal of clarity for everything else. So then I can kind of just take actions every single day towards that. And so I get up early and well, the discipline part sometimes requires things that you may not want to do, but still do them anyways. So like every morning I make my bed. And so first thing in the morning, my bed is made and that allows me to start my day properly, not and with intention. I purposely make my bed because then I get a dopamine hit. It allows me to go to the next one. And then I kind of keep doing things day to day. And as a bodybuilder back in the day, man, I was all consistency. I could stay at home, eat, go out, train, come back. So these patterns are easy to kind of maintain.
Gotcha. Gabby, same question. Somebody sitting on the couch doesn't know about mindset, but really wants to define it for themselves. What can they do?
Okay, so my most favorite one is the 5 Minute Journal. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it is a very nice looking hardbound book that you can get at Chapters or Indigo or any bookstore online, Amazon. But each page, well, first of all, they have a whole thing in the beginning about mindset that you can kind of learn about, read about. And then each page, you write down 3 things that you're grateful for, 3 things, yeah, so 3 gratitudes, 3 affirmations, and then 3 things that would make today great. And so I found that was a really good one for, again, you don't know where to start. And Sachi talked about purpose, but like for a lot of people, that's really, really hard to define, especially if they are in a tough mental space and like really figuring out like, I don't have a purpose, right? Like there are a lot of people out there that don't believe that they have a purpose, and that can be really a major downer. And so I found that like those little things, again, starting off with just like, okay, like what is good around me? What can I do to control that in making my day great? And again, these positive affirmations, what are positive things that I am or that I want to be that I can claim that I am? And go from there. And then there's like a nighttime check-in one as well. What went well today kind of thing. Or what do I want to focus on tomorrow or something like that. But I found that even just the daytime ones were really beneficial and a really great way to kind of start that whole mindset journey and intentionality.
I like that. Evan Birch, one of our guests on, had something really great to say, which is you speak the words into existence, like you speak them into
Correct.
existence. If you talk about it, if you, as such, said, "I'm going to be an athlete now," he became an athlete because he spoke it into existence. Now, there was a ton of effort and everything else on the back end, but the words were the catalyst to start. So,
Yeah, and that's I was just gonna go back and say that that's a James Clear Atomic Habits thing of speaking it into existence, because he talks about how with your mind, you want to act in accordance with the things that you believe. And so when you say those things as if you believe them, your mind naturally will push you to do those things, to act in alignment with those. And so it's very true that you speak it into existence, especially when you put it out into the world, right? Because then you're accountable for it.
Well, that was the other thing I was going to say as well. Is I know Such when he puts stuff out, especially on social media and stuff. Now he's accountable to go do that. And I know he's accountable to himself, but it's definitely something where it's a little check. It's like, okay, look, everybody knows I'm doing this. I can't just get into the van and let somebody drive me to my location. I'm gonna have to run it, or I'm gonna have to cycle it because everybody knows. So
I think
Mhm.
what's cool to so over we had the Night to Inspire a couple weeks ago, and we had 9 guest speakers talk and share their perspectives on mental health and tools and whatnot. Anyways, the next day, Sean Taylor, who was one of the speakers, retired special operator from JTF2 and performance coach and a whole bunch of other things he's done. He and his wife and myself and my girlfriend Julia went for a late lunch, and we were just talking about various different things, dolphin language, etc. And we were- we came up, we started talking about delusional self belief, and we just kind of came out of nowhere. And so what I mean by delusional self belief, it gets to a point where you might, and a lot of people might have some ideas or thoughts or dreams that may seem really out of the ballpark, like really out of grasp. And some may think it's delusional because you've never engaged in those types of things. But I think those delusional dreams are really what are guiding you into what you want, what you should be doing. So I had a delusional belief 3 years ago to break a record to run across Canada, and I hadn't even ran 5 kilometers for 30 years. I wasn't a runner. But I think with delusional belief, and then when you create self belief in yourself through the process of engaging a challenge like that over a period of time, you actually get towards it. Now, will I break a record? I don't know. But I created a plan and started moving in a direction that would allow me to grow and develop and learn a ton of things, meet a ton of people, become better and wiser through that process. Now, if I end up breaking a record, cool. If I don't, well, I don't care. It's not really that important. The job and journey has already been completed because I'm sitting here on a podcast talking to Gabby and you, and we're sharing this with other people. And so, really, the growth has already happened. So, people, I think, don't be scared of some of the dreams that you might even have, right? Because as soon as you take that first step walking through Gabby's location, you don't know what's going to happen 5 years from that day. You could have achieved something that you never thought in a million years that you could actually do. And that's the point of why we need to start thinking more positively and with a growth mindset.
I love it. Final thoughts here before we go and let everybody know how to get a hold of you. Gabby, final thoughts on our conversation today on mental health and mindset.
Um, my base one is always you can do more than you think you're capable of. You are where you're at right now, but that doesn't mean that you can't be somewhere else in a very short amount of time. So don't hesitate to challenge yourself and step outside your comfort zone. Try something new. Explore, dreams that you may have all had for a very long time that you've never pursued or think that you might not be capable of now and are still worth pursuing. You can do it.
I love it. Such, how about you? Final thoughts.
Well, I'm glad fellow Lululemon ambassador Gabby was able to join us today on the podcast and share her wisdom and her experiences over the last few years, going from one career and pivoting into a whole different direction, perhaps helping even more people than she had before. So thank you, Gabby, for jumping in and taking time out of your day, man.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And Such, what do you got going on?
What do I got going on? Okay, so June 5th, Global Running Day, I'll start my kickoff of running 3,100 kilometers in 52 days. So 60 kilometers a day for 52 days starts on the 5th of June. We're going to probably be doing it in the South Surrey area, White Rock, for the first day, around Lululemon and around the community. And we'll be taking that in the Lower Mainland for the first few weeks, and then fly to Edmonton, run from Edmonton to Calgary, and then fly to Toronto, run Toronto to Ottawa, fly to Halifax, run 60K in Halifax, fly back home and finish it off here. All for charity and the Such in Motion Foundation. So the foundation now, any donation that's made by an individual or corporation, we can issue tax receipts, and the funds will be going towards Honor House, Kids Play, and a few other charities within the Lower Mainland, or not Lower Mainland, but charities that I like supporting. And one of them might be, what was the charity that Matt Devine was? I'm exploring that one too. With the
Little Warriors Canada.
Yeah, Little Wars Canada is a charity that helps kids who've been child abused through the process of how to kind of come out the other end. So I'm exploring that one. Anyway, so we got that going on. And then in the fall, we're going to be taking the event or the convention that we had, the Night to Inspire. We're going to take it on a 3-city tour. We're going to go to Toronto, Ottawa, and Halifax in the fall so that we can share that with everyone out that direction. And that's what's up.
Fantastic. Gabby, what do you have going on, and how can people get a hold of you? Oh, looks like Gabby's frozen there.
Yeah, well, or she's sleeping.
Or she's sleeping. Yeah, we put her to sleep. Oh, there we go. So what'll end up happening is we'll put all of Gabby's socials and how to get a hold of her, and I'll reach out to her, and we'll make sure that anybody here who's listening is able to get in contact with her if they want. Obviously, if you're around the South Surrey area or the Lower Mainland of British Columbia, fantastic way to reach out to her and get some benefit from her. But who knows what she's got coming up here? She might be able to help you out moving forward. Such, as always, what a fantastic podcast. I can't wait to have Gabby back on. I think that's about it. It's all been said and done. Just remember, guys, listeners, when you're looking at your life, intention is huge. Why are you doing it? Why are you using your time on it? And if you're going to do it, enjoy it. Do it to the best of your ability, because you only have a certain amount of time every day. All right, guys, from myself and Such, thanks for joining us this week. I'll look forward to seeing you next week.
See you later.
Hey friends, remember to check out our Instagram at @third_perspective_podcast. Thanks for tuning in.